Hello everybody, happy Pride. Oh, my fan's backwards. Hey everybody, happy Pride, and welcome to part 2 of my Pride series where I review a different piece of queer media every day in June. So, last episode I reviewed GLEE, which I know a few people are like, why? But like I said then, GLEE was like the blueprint for me because it was my first time seeing queer representation on screen. That being said, I decided to follow up with another piece of media that came out that same year, Modern Family. Don't hit me, y'all. I know y'all are probably like, why is he reviewing things that are ancient? But I decided I wanted to follow up with Modern Family because, again, it was really part of my awakening, and it really influences how I see other media, but I'll get into that in a second. Here we go. So I know what some of y'all are thinking. GLEE, Modern Family, is it 2009? Why? Where's Heartstopper? Where is Love, Simon? Where is Pose? I'm getting to all of that, I swear. But I decided I wanted to follow up with Modern Family because, Modern Family actually only ended relatively recently, wildly enough. Like, Modern Family came out in 2009 and ran 11 seasons. And 2009 was what? Math. 10 years will be 2019, 2020, 2021. So yeah, it's only been 2 years since the show ended. So it's been running for all of this time. So I do think it's still relevant, but also, like I mentioned before, it came out the same year as GLEE, and it was another one of those experiences where I was really seeing queer representation for the first time. And because I talked about GLEE in the last video, I wanted to talk about Modern Family because they came out the same year. And it's funny thinking about that in retrospect because it kind of makes a lot of things make sense. If you haven't watched the GLEE video, you should click over because I talked about what things are kind of like at the time, as far as like society's views on LGBT culture and LGBT representation. But cliff notes of that is there was kind of animosity towards it. There was kind of like, even the people who were progressive were like, be gay behind closed doors. There wasn't really like a out proud mentality from straight people. Of course, queer people were doing their own thing and we were like, we're queer, we're here, get used to it. But as far as like, everyone else, there was that mindset. And it's funny because now thinking back, now I kind of see why there was, not that I understand it, but now it kind of makes sense why I remember there all of a sudden being so much like homophobic rhetoric. I mentioned when GLEE came out, my first time hearing about GLEE as a show was in church, and there was a sermon being preached about how how homosexuality is like being sold to children and how they're trying to reel in our youth. And it's funny because I didn't even realize Modern Family came out the same year because, like I said, I didn't see GLEE until years later because I wasn't allowed to watch it. So I never put 2 and 2 together that those shows came out the same year, which makes so much sense. I just remember homophobes being all up in arms all of a sudden and being like, the gays are everywhere, which was just 2 shows. But to them, they were like, the gays are everywhere. So similar to GLEE, I was not allowed to watch Modern Family because of the gay characters. Oh wait, before I get into that, quick run on Modern Family in case you haven't seen it. Modern Family is a mockumentary-style TV show. It's a comedy that focuses on as the title suggests, modern family, a non-traditional family that consists of, let me make sure I get this family tree right. The patriarch is Jay, has just remarried Gloria and has a stepson, Manny. Jay has children that are close in age to his new wife. Claire, who's married to Phil, and they have 3 kids of their own, Haley, Luke, and Alex. And then Mitchell is married to, well, not at first, but is dating Cam, another man, and they adopt a girl named Lily. So it's just a bunch of hijinks, comic, funny stuff about this family that's not your traditional husband, wife, 2.5 kids. So like I said, when the show came out, it was, and like I said, there have been other gay characters and other gay shows, but they were like late night or on HBO or on like away. It was not marketed as like family friendly, because at the time that was like the view of homosexuality or LGBT media at all, that it wasn't family friendly. So it existed, but it was kept out of view. So I never was exposed to it. But Modern Family was on ABC at a primetime slot. So now it was like, okay, they're putting the show like it's a family show. And so that was getting a lot of outrage. So again, in case you haven't picked up, I grew up around a lot of homophobia, in case you haven't picked up on that yet. But again, I wasn't allowed to watch that show. Funnily enough, I remember it coming on. I remember my stepdad being like, change it. And I didn't know why, because I had never heard of it. Also, for context, this was like before everyone had like Twitter, or maybe they did. No, this was like, yeah, before everyone just had like media access like we do now. I didn't have a smartphone with YouTube and Twitter and Facebook where I could just look up these shows, not only just to watch them myself, but that they were on my radar. It's not like now where I'll be scrolling on TikTok and an ad for like Heartstopper will come up and I'm like, oh, what's this show everyone's talking about? Let me watch it. I was like in my own bubble, and if people weren't talking about it at school, or if I didn't see commercials for it, I didn't know what it was or that it existed. So again, just like with GLEE and Modern Family, when I was just told not to watch it, I didn't really question it. I didn't know why. So just like GLEE, I wasn't allowed to watch it at first. And I didn't understand why for the longest. I just was like, okay, cool, whatever. And I remember, like I said, I remember clearly my stepdad being like, change the channel. And I was like, oh, okay, wonder what that was. So yeah, so Modern Family, much like GLEE, I was not watching right when it was on. I did not watch the whole first year, because that would have been... Oh, actually, that means I didn't get started for a while, because GLEE came out... Not GLEE, I'm talking about Modern Family, but they both came out, I want to say that would have been before my mom even remarried to my stepdad. And I have a clear memory of my stepdad changing the channel for Modern Family. So that would have been, and we were in America when that happened. Fun fact, for those who don't know, I grew up in Japan. I'll probably do a video talking about that, because I know that is different and interesting. But I grew up in Japan, and I moved to Japan in 2010. So that means when GLEE and Modern Family came out, I was in Japan, which kind of makes more sense as to why I also was not aware of these shows. I was in a different country. So I was like, that kind of tracks to why I was like not aware of it until I heard people talking about it like in church and stuff. So when my stepdad changed the channel, that would have been 2010. So I would have been in America now. So by this point, I had discovered GLEE. I would have had discovered that in the airport. That would have happened already, because this would have been after the trip to Europe, to Spain. All that is irrelevant, I guess. I was just trying to create the timeline for myself and going down memory lane. But yes, I say all that to say, so I would have been a freshman in high school, and so I had known GLEE was on, and by this point I was sneaking and watching GLEE. So I didn't sneak off and watch Modern Family though, and that's what I wanted to get into, that I think was interesting. I think because of Modern Family, the way it was marketed, they were able to slide under some homophobes' radar, not the wave, because I can't remember what came on before Modern Family, but something else would come on. I want to say it was the middle. So me and my family, we were very like old school. I didn't realize until I talk about my family that a lot of people say they didn't do this and they had a different experience, and that we were like weird. But we used to like sit down, have dinner every night together. So basically what my day would look like, I would come home from either school or rehearsal, and I would go in my room. Everyone would be in their rooms doing their separate things. that was the time to be alone. And then when it was time for dinner, we all came down, we all sat together, we all had dinner together, we washed the dishes together, and then we would usually watch TV for a little while together before we then split our separate ways. So after dinner, I want to say it was the middle that came on that we would watch, and Modern Family would come on right after, something like that. So long story short, normally Modern Family would come on and we would break, and we'd be like, all right, bye, we're going to our rooms. One day though, I don't remember what episode it was, but one day Modern Family came on, and right out the gate, something hilarious happened. We were all cracking up, and we were like, wait, let's watch this. And my parents were just kind of like, because of the gay couple, Cam and Mitch, and they were like, But it was so funny, they let it slide. And I honestly think that that's one of the genius things about Modern Family, is that it is so funny that I really think they were able to get into homes where they wouldn't have. And it's funny because Modern Family toes the line of, as far as representation, and when I score the representation later, I think I'll be scoring it pretty low, because I do think that Modern Family does lean into a lot of stereotypes, and I feel like that is what made it get into houses where it normally wouldn't, if that makes sense. Because Modern Family, with all the characters, I think, and I guess that's the nature of sitcoms though, right, to play into stereotypes. Because like Gloria was also a stereotype, and just as much as Cam and Mitchell, but you know, they're these loud, flamboyant couple, very, like, if I were to make a list of anything that's considered a gay stereotype, it probably would be something that would also be used to describe Cam and Mitchell: flamboyant, loud, dramatic, all of the above.
We lost our baby in the car and people are judging us. I'm gonna break it!
Sir, please tell your wife to relax.
That's a man.
And so I think I noticed that because of that, my parents didn't have as much of a negative reaction, which is bad and sad. But because when Glee was on in that airport that day, which if you don't remember that story, watch the Glee video, I think it was because I think people were more homophobic, people should I say, were more anti-Glee, because Glee was like very much trying to, they played in the stereotypes too, don't get me wrong, but they were very much normalizing and being like, we are showing you the truth of these characters, especially the queer ones. Whereas Modern Family, it felt that they were really leaning into those stereotypes and allowing the audience to kind of like laugh at the stereotypes, if that makes sense. Like a homophobic person would have this idea of a gay person, that they're loud, dramatic, flamboyant, and flaming. Then they'd watch Modern Family and see that, and they're like laughing at the stereotype that they have in their head. But I say this to say, what Modern Family did that was smart though, is that all this would happen, but then they would sneak in these nuggets of like authentic, genuine truth. Like you have these really, really heartfelt moments, especially between Cam and Mitchell and their family, where it was just like, you could see the love between Cam and Mitchell, the love they had for their daughter, the love they had for their family. And I think that was what was really smart about Modern Family. They reeled people in who I think would not have watched the show otherwise, because that's how my family started watching Modern Family, because they didn't feel that being gay was being marketed, if that makes sense. It wasn't being dove into. It was like, it's these stereotypical gay guys that we're laughing at, and they're funny. And they would do that enough to where you didn't get the nuggets of like good queer representation that was snuck in there. But I was noticing it obviously at the time. Like I remember, I was laughing along with it, but I remember at the end of the day, I was like, wow, this is like a gay couple. And so keep in mind, I mentioned this is coinciding with Glee, where Glee was the first time I had seen a gay couple dating in anything. And I remember just being like amazed, because I didn't really know that that was something that gay people did. I was just now discovering what that meant. And I didn't really know that gay people could have a relationship that looked like all the hetero relationships around me. And so GLEE, you know, was a teen relationship in high school, which I was, of course, connecting with on that level. But then to see Cam and Mitchell as adults adopting a child, and keep in mind, this is before gay marriage is legalized too, to see them adopting a child and like living in a house and having like a life that looked like my parents or any other couple, I was like, oh, I remember thinking like, okay, so this is something that like, this could be someone's life. Like you could live a happy life like this. So it definitely opened doors there. So that's why I wanted to talk about Modern Family after talking about GLEE, because they both were happening at the same time, and they both were my introduction to like the queer world and the queer community. And so to watch them in tandem really just kind of like showed me, okay, this is something that other people experience and they live with, and they live their life full, happy lives. Kurt and Blaine were happy. Cam and Mitch were happy. I think that's the biggest thing for me, that through all the stereotypes of Modern Family, through all of the sometimes problematic things that didn't age well, I think at the end of the day, what really mattered is that we were seeing a gay couple that was living happy, had a child, and living a life just like everybody else. And that, to me, is the biggest thing that Modern Family could have given me or anyone at that time, I think. Not to mention, they also had their moments where they moved away from stereotypes. Like, I remember so clearly that Mitch and Cam, like, Cam was always depicted as the more, like, flamboyant one, yet at the same time, he was the one who liked sports and was a football coach. And I remember the episode where they thought someone broke in the house, and Mitch was scared to check, but Cam jumped out of bed and got a baseball bat and was like ready to tussle. He was ready to rock.
Leave me alone.
There's a man in Lily's room. There's a man in Lily's room. It's go time.
And I know that seems like very simple, basic representation now, because when you have more representation, it kind of opens the door for different aspects of a queer person's personality. But at the time, again, Cam and Mitchell were really like some of the only representation on TV. So for them to like, first they, like I said, they leaned into the stereotypes. When the show started, season 1, Cam and Mitchell, textbook stereotypes. But as it went on, like I said, they really started to break away from that sort of thing. Like, yeah, Cam was like more flamboyant one, and he was like a housewife, but then he became he was the sole, like, I don't want to say the sole caretaker, but he was like the more maternal one. He was like the stay-at-home mom. Like, he was being given a lot of like gender roles that are usually assigned to women, which of course gender roles shouldn't exist at all. But they were treating Cam and Mitchell like you would treat a hetero couple, and they assigned them in roles. And it was very much like Cam is the mother, Mitch is the dad. But I love when they started breaking away from that, you know, like Cam, again, the football coach. And then at the end, they move for Cam's job, and Mitchell's decide he's going to stay at home, and they switch roles. And I think that's one of the best parts about the queer experience, is that you are able to be more fluid. Well, everyone can be fluid no matter what your genders are, but I feel like because you already are in a relationship that's stepping aside from gender norms, you are free to, like, you know, kind of move into those roles, move in and out of them, what works best for your relationship, I feel. But sidebar, that's a whole different story. But yeah, and then they broke away from those stereotypes, and Cam became the breadwinner, and Mitchell started to stay home. And I just feel like that was something interesting, because it showed that queer people weren't like a monolith, and that their queerness could look different. And again, I just love how Clear Love was in there. And then also too, how great of an opportunity, because that show was still on when gay marriage was legalized. And so then you had Cam and Mitchell. They're like, oh, we can get married now. This kind of changes everything. We didn't know this could happen. And I just feel like, that show, along with GLEE, going back to Glee for a second, I feel like it's just such a perfect time capsule because both those shows started at such a different point in queer history and ended at such a different point. Both those shows started before queer marriage was legalized, before Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And so you can see it in the show when you watch it. You can see how both shows kind of start off with like these stereotypical gay characters and how as it progresses, you know, like in both those shows, gay marriage was legalized within those shows. And so you see like some of the first gay marriages on TV were in both of those shows. You had Kurt and Blaine and Santana, and Brittany got married in Glee, and then Cam and Mitchell got married in Modern Family. And it was a time, because now, and it was the perfect storm really, because like I said, not only was I seeing queer characters for the first time, but then when gay marriage was legalized, they were on that. Let me tell you, as soon as it was legalized, we got episodes of Cam and Mitch getting married. And so to be able to like, because keep in mind, again, setting the scene of where I was. At this point, I moved to America. I was in Virginia. Gay marriage is legalized, and it's a whole bunch of conservative Republicans upset, including people in my family who aren't even Republican, but a bunch of people were upset that gay marriage was legalized and saying that it was such an abomination. So then for me to be surrounded by that, to see this happy couple getting married, who was just like any other couple, getting married, they had a daughter, it was very much like, but what's wrong with this? You know, like what is the problem? Who are they hurting? And I'm really glad that the timing of that worked out, because then it was just like, while all this hate was being spewed, you had this very clear representation of the fact that that was just bigoted nonsense. So that being said, for my ranking, as far as being enjoyable, I give it a 9. I love Modern Family, which, so before I give these other scores, for people who think I'm being harsh, let me just say I love Modern Family. I give it a 9 for enjoyability because I watched the show multiple times. Ever since it's been put on Hulu, I literally was watching episodes of Modern Family last night. It's one of those shows I put on when I'm like cleaning my room or going to sleep or trying to get some writing done so I can have noise but not get too distracted, because I've seen it so many times and I like to have it playing in the background. It's hilarious. It always has been hilarious, and I will probably watch it a million more times. So I give it a 9. Plot, this might not be fair because it is a comedic sitcom. Well, it's a comedy, but I give it a 5 for plot. I mean, but that's the nature of comedic shows, right? Like 30 minutes, you get a day in the life episode, you just kind of see some random chaos, and then we move on. But it does have its strong moments, which is why I don't give it like a 1 for plot. The writing is very good. It's just that the plot isn't necessarily the driving force of the show. Diversity, unfortunately, I have to give the show a 2, and that's being generous. The only people in the show that aren't white are Gloria and Manny, and there are a lot of jokes at their expense for not being white. They get a lot of jokes about being Latin and her being fiery and her accent. Like, almost every joke dealing with Gloria comes down to her race. So diversity is not it with this show at all. So unfortunately, I have to give this show a 2 for diversity. Uniqueness, I'll give it a 9. Like Glee, I think it was very unique for multiple reasons. Again, I feel like watching it now, you may not feel it, but at the time, again, there weren't that many gay people on TV, and then the mockumentary style was sort of new. We had The Office, and then this, and that was about it. Now the mockumentary style is done to death, and we have a whole bunch of shows that are given to us in that format. But Modern Family was like the first or the second. I'm not sure what came out, this or The Office first, but they both came out kind of close to each other, so I definitely think that that was some originality. Did I say that right? Originality, yeah. Originality for that show. So I give it a 9 for uniqueness. Representation, I give it a 7. I give it a 7 because, I think is generous. I feel like it should be lower because Cam and Mitch kind of play into those stereotypes, but they had moments where they weren't, and I did like the fact that they were showing a gay couple being normal people. But anytime, the other queer representation I also say is not that good. Like everyone, like Pepper was just as flamboyant. Like we never really saw gay characters on there that weren't stereotypically gay. So, that weren't all like flamboyant, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm just saying, as far as queer representation goes, we didn't get much of it. It wasn't like GLEE I mentioned before, where we had trans characters, white gay characters, black gay characters, lesbian, gay. On this show, it was pretty monolith. On this show, it was pretty much the same. We were given the same thing. It was pretty one note. But because of the time period that it came on, I'll still give it a 7 for representation. So overall, factoring in the score, drum roll, Modern Family is given a 6.4 on my list. So that brings it after GLEE so far in my ranking, with GLEE at the top, Modern Family second. But that is going to change tomorrow when I add in my next score. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to check out Petty and Pink videos. Make sure to check out the Pride playlist, and I'll see you guys soon.